Welcome back to AnglingBuzz Ice. I'm your host Jake Wallace, and first ice is just around the corner. You know, I know a lot of anglers that just head out on the ice without prepping their gear, and they get out there and they're running into a lot of issues. So this episode is going to be all about getting ready for this upcoming ice season.
Nice crappie. Look at that crappie. That's what we came out here for.
Just wait, I will. Yeah, I got him.
You get to actually watch that thing bite.
Oh man, twice.
He feels big. Feels real big. There we go, boys.
That's what you call
That's a kitty. To begin the show, we're going to talk about electronics, and Jeremy Smith's got a new app, the OnX Fish app. He's got to show you. It's going to change the way you find fish, and the best part, it's free.
So for those of you who spend a lot of time in the woods, I'm sure you're familiar with the OnX map. It's an incredible tool for hunting. I use it all the time for scouting spots, of course, when I'm hunting, but I also use it all the time when I'm mushroom hunting. Now there's a fish version available for Minnesota and Wisconsin, with other states coming. The download is free right now, and I'm telling you, this is going to be an amazing tool to help you get on more fish this ice fishing season. So I'm just going to begin with a few of the tools that I think are going to be really important, and this is just scratching the surface of what this app can do. It is extremely feature rich. So here's a few of the tools that I've been using. So just like the OnX Hunt version, it shows land ownership. So this is really cool if you want to access a body of water that might not have a public landing. You can see where you could possibly access from the road. Of course, it also shows you where all the trails are. So if you wanted to snowmobile into something, you could see if one of those bodies of water was adjacent to public land to give you better access to that location. Additionally, the mobile version, it's pretty cool that I can just push a button to a public access and I will get driving directions to that location. So this is really cool. It's on my Apple CarPlay in my truck. So I want to go to some lake I've never been to before. I just push a button, tell it to take me there, and boom, I'm traveling to that spot. Now let's get into a little bit more of the fishy stuff. The fisheries data is really cool. So they're taking a lot of the DNR data that the Minnesota DNR has and putting it in the app. So you can get a real general overview of what the fishery has to offer, but then additionally you're going to be able to get species information on the size structures of the fish. And one of the things that I really like about it is you're able to go back in time and look at previous years' surveys of different fish species to see what the fishery has been doing in the past. So for example, you might want to look at a lake that you're walleye fishing on, and you could see that 3 years ago there was a ton of 8 to 12 inch walleyes in the lake. Well, those are probably now into that eater size range. So that's a really cool feature that this allows you to sort that data and look through. Additionally, a lot of lakes in Minnesota have special regulations. And so when you pull up a body of water, you're able to see what those special regulations are. It's right there in the map, so you don't have to go to the website, look up, what the special regs are for that lake. So that's right there. It has filters so you can search for lakes based on high abundance, trophy potential, or keeper potential. So this is a really cool search criteria if you're looking at an area that has really rich in bodies of water and you want to say, I want to go catch a bunch of eater crappies. Well, you can search those criteria, eater size crappies, and it's going to show you the lakes that have the highest likelihood of you catching those fish. It also has weather. It's got moon, barometer, and on the map you can view precipitation. So this is great, and when you're on the water, you can of course look at the hourly wind conditions. If you're on big water, you can know what to expect. It's got the moonrise, moonset, majors and minors on there, so musky fishermen, but really all fishermen should be paying attention to that moon data because it does tend to indicate when bite windows will happen. And there's a lot more, but the last thing I want to touch on is satellite imagery. So in the app, there is an option to choose recent satellite imagery. Now, it might not be the highest satellite imagery available, but if you wanted to look at ice conditions, if there's some recent imagery taken of the area that you're looking at without cloud cover, you'll be able to see if the lake is iced over or not. Now, these are just, like I said, a few of the items that are available on Xfish, but just dive in, play with it. I'm telling you, it's free. It will help you catch more fish, and it's a super, super cool app to be using.
There are some things you as an ice angler can do to get yourself ready for the first ice. And obviously these are common sense things, but they're things I think you should look at before you go out to make sure you have a good time on the ice. I'll start with my fish houses. I'll take my flip over fish house, take the cover off, open it up, and basically I'll do an inspection around the house, looking for rips, tears, maybe some mice got in there, chewed it up. You want to make sure everything around your house is good and in operating condition. Once you've determined that, just make sure the poles, the upright poles are in place. Make sure your towing bracket's in place, pins are in place, and then you're good to go. Same thing if you have a hub house. Take it out of the bag, set it up, air it out, open the windows, check the poles, make sure nothing's broke or damaged, inspect around the whole house, look for any kind of rips or tears or mouse chews, and then before you put it away, make sure you have all your ice anchors in the bag so that you're ready on a windy day. Next up, let's take a look at the auger. Again, this is common sense stuff. You know, with the auger, you probably charged your batteries in the spring before you put it away. If you did that, check your batteries now. These lithium batteries are really good at holding a charge for a long period of time. So if they're fully charged in the summer, they should be come fall. So I'll just check the batteries to make sure each one's charged fully. And then when it comes to blades, you know, you gotta be careful, but if you used your auger a lot, I would just check it before you go out to make sure there isn't any really big nicks or chunks missing or any rust on it. Otherwise, you should be good to go. If you're an avid angler and are out cutting a lot of holes, unless you're a guide or somebody who fishes a ton, you should be able to get 2 years out of your blades. But I always keep a extra set on hand with me just in case I run into trouble. I'll take it in the truck with me. Out on the lake, I'll have an extra set of blades to replace. So when it comes to your graph unit, getting through a long day of ice fishing is a big deal, right? You wanna, if you're out from dawn to dusk, you wanna make sure you have enough battery power to get you through a full day and get you into the evening bite. Most units typically come with a 10 amp hour battery. You may wanna consider switching to an 18 or a 20 amp hour to extend the life of your unit, possibly even into the next day. There's often days where it's really cold out, so it will draw down the battery more than on a warmer day. So putting a bigger battery in your unit will ensure that you have a full, good, long day of fishing. And last but not least, if your unit has mapping, don't forget your map chip. Most of us put our map chips in our boat in the summer and forget to pull them out in the winter. So before you go out on the ice, you want to make sure your card is in the unit. So grab it out of your boat and make sure you get it into the unit before you head out.
I tell you what, like it or not, one of the fun parts about ice fishing is the anticipation of ice developing. And in that time, you know, most guys are out hunting, they're done hunting, they're done open water fishing. It's that build up to go ice fishing. And during that period, it's a great time to get all your gear ready. One thing that a lot of guys overlook potentially is, you know, their line and their line options. So with that, there are several line options that you can have. You have your braid, your mono, and your fluorocarbon. Now, why would you use a braid? Obviously that for sensitivity is a great reason to use braid. I like using braid. It's problematic in the fact that if you're fishing outside, it tends to freeze real easily. So if you're inside a hub shack or you're inside a fish house, braid's no problem. The advantage of a mono is the stretch. Now, when you're fighting a fish and that fish is off to the side and it's catching on the hole, and so it'll catch on the bottom of the hole and jerk, it offers forgiveness. So you'll have a little bit of a shock, I guess is the best way I can describe it, a little bit of shock absorption. And with that, you're gonna lose fewer fish. That's the one reason I like mono. The problematic part of mono is that over time, it does have a shelf life. And so every year, you have to add new line. Take off the old line and add new line. Another thing with these, like the size 750 reel, which would be a panfish size reel, it's that smaller, and just over this thing, when it comes off there, you can probably see that. It's like a worn out slinky. Like that is some bad line. And naturally over time, if this stuff gets bad, I think on this walleye rod, I can actually see it on there. It'll start to get like a white coating on that, and that stuff becomes real brittle and it'll just break. So this is a great time of year to work on your line. All you really need to do, you're not fishing, you need 100 feet of line. Just remember that. You need 100 feet of line put on your mono, or if you use a fluorocarbon line on there. And then with the braids, obviously they have different colored braided lines, like this is a chartreuse, and then they even have the white, whereas the white one is kind of a popular ice type line. So I have black on here. If I wanted to change that out again, it's 100 feet of that. I can just take that and put that on here. With the fluorocarbon leader, I run that on almost everything with ice, because the way those fish, when you're ice fishing, they're coming in, and it can make a difference having that line. And they can become line shy, especially when water gets clear in winter. For the most part, you'll fish some dingy water situations where it's not going to matter, but for the most part, I always err on the side of caution and use fluorocarbon. So, you can use any type of nail knot, back-to-back uni knot, whatever you want, a connection line, line-to-line connection. So start stripping that line out. And for the panfish, I'm totally confident that's enough. This is my panfish rod. So, look away, Mom. Pick that up. And then I'm gonna add, in that panfish line, I'm gonna add the 4-pound. This is a 4-pound. This is Invisalign fluorocarbon. I'll put the fluorocarbon on this just so I can just spool that straight on. So, okay, now I have my connection knot connected the line. I'm gonna use this fluorocarbon Invisalign, and I'm just gonna spool, wind it on there. Now another thing, even though I took off an estimated 100 feet, fill that spool back up. You don't know when you're gonna go. You're gonna be out there, maybe you get a tangle, whatever. You wanna have that spool full, and then be honest with you, the reel, that's how it's designed to function with a full spool of line. So if you lose a little bit of line, get a little problem, you have backup line, and then the reel just functions better. So fill that thing up to about 1/8 of an inch to the top. You're good to go. Perfect. All right, and that's how you fill a spool. Now with one other thing I want to mention, if you got the super line or the braid, if you're tying on here, this is my panfish rod, I have a jig. So I use a piece of fluorocarbon and I will tie right to the braid. When you're jigging a jig, it's not spinning. Anytime you're using a lure, so this is a walleye stick, what I always do, and I would highly recommend you do, is add a tiny, you can't even hardly see, these swivels are so small, these number 0 swivels or a number 1 swivel. Find the smallest swivel you can. It is not gonna break. Your line's gonna break before that swivel, so get a tiny little swivel, tie it in line, tie it to your super line, and then tie the other one to a piece of fluorocarbon. And what that'll do, whether you're using a jigging rap that darts all over the place or a spoon that'll twirl, when that lure comes back down to position, it's not spinning like this, okay? And that it'll trigger more strikes. I'll guarantee it. All the expert ice anglers I know, they use a swivel. I think you should use one too. So good luck out there.
This show has been all about getting ready for first ice, and when I think of first ice here, I think of first ice panfish and first ice walleyes, like on Red Lake. And here I've got some new baits for both from Northland Fishing Tackle. So let's start with the panfish. The first is the tungsten pin fry and the tungsten broom bug. Now we're gonna start with the pin fry. This is a great minnow imitation. It's a small size, and it is great for big bluegills and big perch. It's really designed for those big bluegills. It comes in 2 different sizes, a 1/16 ounce and a 1/28 ounce. and it comes in a variety of different colors. Now, the tungsten broom bug is really designed to imitate invertebrates like bloodworms. It's bigger, that tail wags so great in the water, you barely have to twitch both of these and they move great. And you can fish this out in the basins for crappies, or you can fish it in the weeds. Now, both of these baits are rigged on the tungsten flat fry jig head. Now, these new Northland panfish jigs are gonna be incredible for that first ice bite. You gotta get some if you're gonna chase some big panfish. Now, moving on to the walleye side, First Ice Walleyes is all about spoons, and Northland's got 3 new ones. 2 of them are tungsten. The first, the tungsten buckshot and the tungsten slim spoon. Now, the buckshot has been around forever, but new this year is a tungsten version. It's got that classic internal rattle that just calls in walleyes from a distance. But the nice thing about these tungsten spoons is tungsten's so much denser than lead that you can get a smaller presentation that weighs more. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, if you're fishing deeper, you can get smaller baits down quicker. And the second is that these tungsten baits have a great return on your sonar, so you can really see these baits a lot better than just traditional lead spoons. Now, both of these tungsten spoons come in 3 different sizes: 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce, and 3/8 ounce. And also, they all come in all those great Northland colors. You pair these with a minnow head and you're gonna be good to go to catch a ton of walleyes this season. Now, the last spoon I wanna talk about, which I'm really excited about, is the Thumper spoon. Now, the Northland Thumper spoon is a thin stamped brass spoon that flutters and falls really erratically, but the unique thing about it is the kicker tail that's right in the middle. Now, as this spoon falls and kicks out, that Thumper blade bangs on the spoon and just makes a ton of noise that's gonna call in those first ice walleyes. Now, it comes in your classic great array of Northland colors in 3 different sizes. And if you're gonna target first ice walleyes, you gotta get the Northland Thumper spoon. You're not gonna be disappointed.
So it's sort of a sad day around Beantown. I just cleaned up my boat, got all the musky gear put away, and put it away for overwintering. And at the same time, I'm actually pulling out my early ice fishing gear. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is ice safety. Unfortunately, I know a little bit about ice. I fish all over in the ice belt for all different fish species. And I've actually went through the ice 3 different times. And Al Lindner went through the ice with his snowmobile. I know a guide up here who actually put his truck through the ice up on Leech Lake. My financial guy here, Gary McAnally, put his car through the ice. So one thing that you can say about ice, it's never safe, and having the right gear is really, really critical. And I got a couple of different things I want to show you that I carry with me all the time, and almost any ice fisherman should. Number 1 is a spud bar. When you're walking out on early ice, it's really critical to check the ice constantly when you're going out. Usually, our ice fishing usually starts out around Thanksgiving, but that depends, and the different quality of ice on different lakes really depends on the depth of water that are in that lake. In some lakes, and then you got spring holes, you got soft spots or whatever, you want to move when you early ice with a spud bar, constantly checking the ice. Next up is some type of throw rope. I have a cushion here. I've always carried this for the last, 10 years. Out on the ice, it's simply a boat cushion with a rope on it. Number 2, and I know Clam makes this other throw rope that I've carried. I personally have never used this, but before, what you can do is you pull 3 feet of line out, and then you do an underhand swing, and it's got enough weight to be able to pitch it out to somebody where you can stay on safe ice and hopefully pull that individual who happens to go down out of the water. The biggest thing is about this is each individual on the ice should have one of these, or have some type of rope to help somebody else out of the ice. And that's one thing that's really key about ice fishing. Don't ice fish alone, no question about it. Don't ice fish alone. Another thing that's really key is having a good pair of cleats. I've seen a lot of boys take some really nasty wipeouts out on the ice. These happen to be Catulas. They're really bulletproof. You slip them over your boots. You do not slide. You're cutting holes early ice. I really like having a good pair of cleats. Last but not least, I should say, is ice picks, and wear them. These are a pair of Clam ice picks. You put them around your neck, You should have them on all the time. If you go through the ice, you can simply take them off and help you get out of the ice, where you can stick these into the ice and literally pull yourself out. That's really key, and this is from experience. Once you go through the ice to get back up on the ice, and you're constantly breaking through, and these would be able to get you grip and pull yourself up and hopefully out of the hole. Another really key item is to have a good suit of some type, obviously not only for warmth, but safety is a good snowsuit, you know, throughout the winter, just to keep you warm and comfortable out on the ice. But the other thing is a lot of manufacturers are making what this is called. This is a clam motion float suit, and these are really nice. If you do go down, it's going to keep you buoyant. You know, you got a lot of heavy clothing on. These will help you keep you more buoyant, and it'll help you get out of the water or the ice if you happen to go in. But it's a relatively simplistic thing, ice fishing. It is in the fact, but every year people go out and do not come back. That's one thing that's really key. When you go ice fishing, preferably do not ice fish alone. You know, we actually have a lot of fabulous tools to make it more comfortable out on the ice, and you're a lot more effective with the electronics, the rods, the reels, the lures, the stuff that's fine-tuned. It's a great season to get out. Early ice bite is very, very good. Just be careful.